Always forget. I gotta start this off with the mic actually hooked up. I literally forget this every time, you guys. Test. Looks like this is on. I think. And I don't like to not have a mic because I just don't think the audio is very good. But then I go messing with stuff, screwing it up like I do. This is so annoying. It says I have like a weird dumb little error on there. I may have to go consult my tech department and figure out what I did. I've never muted this before. I've never had this problem. Screen locked. Well, why is the screen locked? Oi. Oh, you double click it. Okay. Well, this was not going to be the subject of this talk today, but we'll wait for another couple people to jump on here. Good grief. So what happens when your screen's unlocked, and how come you no work? This is like the most bizarre. The phone audio is just not as good. So I don't like doing that when I can avoid it. Yes, maybe. I also tend to move around the room a lot too when I'm doing these. So, okay. Y'all, I'll be right back. Talk amongst yourselves. Get a water or something if you need to. I'm gonna make my husband fix this. He's worked from home today, and this is exactly why I keep him around. I mean, I like him too, but he's really good with this kind of stuff. Okay, take two. As soon as I walked in his office, you guys, it started working. I don't know why I even... Okay, how's that? Can you hear me? Hopefully, because that's as good as it's gonna get. That's all you get. Okay, so hopefully that's working. Backstory to this, I'm always late for everything. I would be late for my own funeral. So I'm all prepared for this. I'm so proud of myself, you guys, because I'm on time. I've got my talking points here. I have all my materials laid out. Everything is going good. I wanted to change and be in something comfy. So what do? I put on a romper. Okay, great, cool, comfy. Then, like 2 minutes before I walked in here to get all prepared, I had to pee. You know what that means. I'm wearing a romper, so then I had to like get out of this whole contraption to go to the bathroom. And I'm like looking at the time. Oh, I'm going to be late. I'm going to be late. I'm always late. I wasn't late. I started right on time. And then it's always something. So it's fine. I'm always late. Know that about me. It's not a personal slight. If you're ever with me somewhere in person, there is just always some sort of shenanigan-ery. I start like hours ahead of time to get ready for stuff, whatever it is. I'm always late. It's like there's an unexpected traffic jam. I left 45 minutes early when it only took me 15 minutes to get there. And I'm late all the time. So it's not you. It's definitely me. But it's not like I'm trying to do it to you or me or anybody else. So anyway, hopefully now everybody can hear me. And also, hello. Get you some water if you did not, because it's hot out there. We have to stay hydrated. So first thing is first, I am cutting, and I'll be cutting my project because I didn't even start on that. I just finished designing it. I have 2 of my colors here. Can anybody guess what I'm making? I am in the mood. I'm over summer. I'm done with it. I'm ready for rain. I'm ready for fog. I'm ready for like all of that. Nighttime, hot tub, cold weather so I can sit in the hot tub, kind of stuff like that. I am over the summer. So I am like full on into all of my spooky stuff. I usually make it to August, but I think because it's so hot this year, I have not even made it to August to wait for Halloween stuff. I've been watching spooky movies for like a month now. While I clean or while I cook, I'm putting stuff on in the background. I don't even care. I'm going to be on to Christmas movies by October. So this is part of the project I'm doing today. If you take a guess on what I'm doing, and I am doing a mav pack. I'm going to be doing the 20% because I want to use this full template. And I have a couple templates actually finishing up cooking in the laser right now for the hacked split gusset, and I want to make sure my math on that one is correct. If you tuned into the one the other night, my math was fine this way, but it wasn't fine thickness wise. I needed to add 1/4 of an inch to either piece. For the split zipper. So I redid that math and made templates for it. So for those of you who are like, I want the split zips and all that, and I want all the pieces, that'll be done. And I made them on the fold. So we're going to try cutting them on the fold right now and see if we got to make sure the maths. Like I want to make sure it's practical. And I am doing this. You guys know I'm not anti-stabilizer, but I don't love stabilizer, depending on what it is. So I am doing canvas today. Are you ready to see the fabric I'm using? I'm so excited about this. I've never cut into this fabric. I'm so excited for it. I've been hoarding this Beetlejuice from a company that I don't even remember now. I bought it years ago. I've had it for like 5 years and 4 years maybe at least. I love this fabric so much, and this is a beautiful canvas. So I thought, you know what? I want to do a domestic friendly. I will be doing this on my straight stitch, my semi-industrial, but you can follow right along with me if you want to and make this on your regular domestic machine. The only reason I'm not doing it on the domestic is because I have thread I want to use on the straight stitch. I want to use this thread. Let me grab it. Look at how delicious this is. I've had this. It's called Villainous. Yeah, Villainous from Wizardry. It's Wizardry Stitchery. And like, look how good it goes. It is purple and green and black. And I'm sorry, but I have to do it. So that's what's happening here. I happen to have just 2. These are my last 2 of these Beetlejuice zipper pulls. I happen to have purple and green piping and binding in my stash. So like, we're going to do it. I also bought this from Wizardry the other night. It is a rainbow teeth on green. I mean, come on, like all the pieces are coming together. I'm using this webbing. It'd be perfect. And I have for my accents this lime green. Do you guys see how this is like pearlescent lime green? It's just too good. I had all this stuff and I'm in the mood for spooky stuff, so we're gonna do it. So I'm into it. So we've got Kalisha on here. Hi Roberta and hi Annette, and hello to anybody else who is joining. So that's what I'm gonna be doing while we're talking. I am cutting this. I'm gonna be using the stabilizer guide on here because I do have to add stabilizer to this, and we're gonna see how I like it. And I'm using like a real thick, I don't even know what you would call this. I mean, what is it? Let me see. Who are you? This is a Peltex. Ultra Firm Sew In 70 Peltex. So what I'm going to do with it is cut it using my stabilizer guide. I'm going to place it on my piece, and then I'm actually going to sandwich it behind fusible fleece. My nose always itches when I'm on with you guys. I'm sorry. Always. My face is like itchy. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to do with it and whatever. So that's the sewing stuff, and I'm sure I'll show you guys my progress as I go. And feel free to tell me whatever you're doing. I don't know if Kalisha, if you're saying you were making a map pack, you thought I was making a map pack, but I'm making a map pack and I'm doing 120%. So, oops, I dropped my fleece. Come back. And I'm totally in the keeping in the spirit of the Halloween spooky stuff. I'm going to be frank-infusing today because I hate waste. So, do with that what you will. I'm just doing all the things. The one bummer, you guys, this made me so sad. I went to light a candle. I like to burn candles in my sewing rooms. I like to live dangerously. These are my favorite candles. They're a little pricey, but they burn for a long time and they smell so good. This Magic Candle Company, this haunted one, smells like Haunted Mansion. It's so good. Makes me happy, but look, I burned all of it and I didn't know. So I took it off the shelf and I went to burn it, and now I'm sad panda because I don't have candles. So I need to reorder this. The two I like the most, just for chit chat sake, Pirate's Life, because I love the way this ride smells, and this smells just like the ride, and Haunted, totally Haunted Mansion. Both of these, I love the smell, and they're clean and crisp without being crazy overbearing. I can't tell you, like, I don't suffer from migraines or anything like that, so I can't tell you if the scent would trigger that, but I do like the way they smell. So anyway, I keep the tins. They're really nice tins that like lock good. So they're great, and they're good size on your hand for like clips and sewing notions. So I adore these candles. They make other products too, but I mostly just stick with the candles. I do get their bath bombs. They make really good bath bombs. I'll tell you, if you have a big bathtub, they're not big enough because they're like this big. They're like little. So they're fine, but then as soon as you fill up a whole bathtub, the smell is like kind of gone. But I do like the products. So anyway, I got to reorder me some candles. And that makes me sad because that was going to be the completion of my spooky thing going on here, was lighting my Haunted Mansion candle, but that's all right. So, say it while you sew if, oh, sorry, I'm shaking the table. I won't do that anymore. I forget you guys are normally up on a top thing that's mounted from the ceiling for that exact reason. I hate shaky table videos, but you're on a stand right now that's on the table. So I need to like be careful about that. Hands off. Later when we go over to the machine, we won't have that problem either because I have like a rig that goes over the table so it doesn't touch the actual table. So, sorry. And that says, well, let's see, hold on, back up. Kalisha says you're making a MAV pack. I can't wait to see your template at 120%. Yeah, I haven't done a 120 yet. I have done back here. This is just for anybody who's curious about this, you can see these here. This is the original, just the OG, no changes. The only thing I did was I put the zipper toward the back instead of the front, and I added piping. That is the only change. All vinyl exterior, waterproof canvas inside. This one, all vinyl exterior, waterproof canvas inside, piping again, and then I changed and did the split gusset. This is what I was saying about the thickness. I was off by 1/4 of an inch on either side, so a total of a 1/2 inch. I actually kind of really dig the thin gusset though, so I was telling y'all that night. Do you see how this sticks out a little bit less? But it's bigger. This is the 115. So I want to double check that. Yeah, this is for sure the 115. I didn't think I'd made a 120 yet. But I like how kind of slim it is because, you know, I got a lot going on here. I don't need like more volume. So I like the thin, but these templates are for you guys. So, I mean, I can make myself any template I want. So I wanted to, you know, again, I want to make sure the math is good. So we ended up with a 2.5 inch gusset on this instead of a 3. Her normal one is a 3 inch gusset for the regular pattern. So, and then look how cute that turned out. I'm waiting on webbing to match it. That's the only reason I haven't finished it. I need the right color webbing. And if I can't find it, I don't know, it just won't get finished. So anyway, discussion today. I just kind of see these things. I do, you know, journaling and other stuff. I write some of this stuff down, but I think, the Say It While You Sew series is just something where we can kind of sit around, talk about stuff. Obviously, I'm going to preface all of this by saying that these are, my experiences and opinions. They don't necessarily mean anything beyond that. Nothing is meant to be like, you have to do this or you should do this. It's just supposed to be thought-provoking, interesting. Maybe, some of these things mirror things that you've thought about or experienced. And it might make you feel like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she said that. My coworker did that to me, or my ex-husband, or I used to do that to my kids and I didn't realize that I did it. Like, it's supposed to be that. It's just something that can help us with a little bit of introspection, as well as get to know the ideas and opinions and thoughts about what other people think on some of these subjects. So, there are a couple things I'm going to touch on here. I'm going to, do kind of a trigger warning, if you want to call that, right here from the beginning. Everybody is welcome to be here, but if this is something that's going to upset you, I don't want to upset anybody. So a couple of very tiny things I'm going to touch on today. We're not going to dive deep into these, but it will come up. Self-harm a little bit, and infertility struggle, because they kind of go hand in hand with some of these examples that I'm going to specifically pinpoint and talk about. So I just want to say that those may come up in the conversation, and if that's something that you struggle with, for one, please feel free to always reach out to me, find somebody to talk to if it's not me, and if, this is going to be harmful for you, I don't want to set you in a way that's going to affect the rest of your day, week, weekend. So feel free. I'm not going to be offended if you're like, you know what, I can't handle that right now, or that's not good for my mental space, or I'm just not interested. Then totally cool. Have a great day. But the topic today for this specific conversation is a phrase that I honestly can't even tell you where I got this from. I've been saying it for years. It's something that I really like, and it helps as a good reminder for me, and I think serves as a good reminder for everybody. Don't yuck someone else's yum. So the reason I like this version of this phrase is because it helps me to remember that not everything is for me. So not everything is for you. And that's important to know, because different strokes for different folks. The whole world is full of tons of people with different experiences, different minds, different everything than you. And it's okay if they like something that you don't. And that literally extends to all things, but at a basic thing that every human needs and deals with, food. So the reason I like the version of this so much, this saying, is because it just helps me remember, you know what? It doesn't hurt me at all that I don't like fish. But if the guy at the table across the restaurant wants to order fish, have at it. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it's great. I hope you love it. And I hope it's the best meal you ever had. It doesn't hurt me one bit for that person to order fish, right? So that's the reason I like this version of this saying the most, because I think most people can relate to that. We all eat food, and we all have something that we like that somebody else doesn't. But in a broader sense, this term, don't yuck somebody else's yum, other ways to say it, the most classic way I think is don't rain on somebody else's parade, right? If somebody else has something that they're expressing happiness or joy about, there is literally zero reason to crap all over it, ever. And I know that we all do it. It's every single one of us has done this before, by accident or on purpose. Maybe you just were in a bad mood. It happens. We all have bad days, but we need to not do this. And the reason I bring it up is because as a society, I feel like I see so much more of this than I used to. Maybe it's just the current times. Maybe it's just the circles I'm around or the things I'm reading or whatever. But it always starts out really positive. Somebody with their dog and they're so happy. Somebody with their new job. A couple of very specific examples I'm going to touch on are gender reveals and prom. And these are positive things. They're happy times, good things. And yet I end up seeing, either from people I don't know or perfect strangers, this need, this weird thing where we are, as a society, so quick to have all this negativity about it, and not just a negative comment, because I truly don't really believe in just being positive all the time. And I've expressed before that that's a little hard for me, the over positive, happy, bubbly. But like, why turn it into a negative thing? Like, how could you turn a baby into a negative thing? They're the happiest, most unadulterated, cute, like unmessed with pure form of a being ever, right? So how can you make that negative? Or the same thing with a puppy or whatever. So that is the reason why this, topic is coming up today. I think it's important to discuss because I think we all need a reminder, we all need a touchstone to talk about these things. And the specific examples I'm going to bring up, the prom and the gender reveal, because I've been seeing this a ton. So if you don't know what a gender reveal is, it's when, a person, couple, have a baby, they're going to have a baby, I should say, and they want to, surprise their friends and family with the announcement of the gender of the child. And, some people, it's simple. My girlfriend just did one. It was, over Easter weekend. It was so sweet. And they just put filling inside of cupcakes. And we all took a cupcake and, cut into it. And she just was so excited. She was like, oh, I want to watch everyone cut into their cupcake, because she was looking at our faces to see our reactions. And I loved that. I was so excited for her. It's her first baby. She's been trying for a long time, and it wasn't, there were some issues. And that was, this came as kind of a surprise. They were not thinking that this was going to work. And it did. And so obviously they're very excited. Ooh, just lost all my fabric. Okay. So I got my two main body exteriors here. I got to go press these really quick, but I'll keep talking. I mean, if I walk away, it's because the press is over there. And I got to press out these little wrinkles. So, that was her gender reveal. It was really simple, easy, cheap. But the thing that I keep seeing is people are, I think upset is probably too much of a word. But I keep seeing all these negative comments and responses to gender reveal parties or events. And so I guess I want to kind of discuss that one first, because what I don't understand is the need to yuck someone else's yum, especially when it comes to a major life event. From personal experience, I have had a number of people in my life who I loved them, and I'm not going to say they were negative people, but their tendency to suck the joy out of the room when something was going on got really wearing. I grew up in that environment, and it taught me that showing excitement about anything and getting invested in anything made me majorly vulnerable. And then that person in my life, my own parents, my own family, would exploit that excitement and turn it into a mean thing. And it really sucked, because I would have good news about something, good grades. I won, a talent competition of some sort, or, got first place, in a thing or whatever. And anytime I showed excitement about that kind of stuff, a boy that I liked talked to me or whatever, it turned into a whole thing. And it was really hurtful. It really sucked. It was uncomfortable. And it taught me a lot of really negative things that I'm now working to change. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is looking at this from a perspective of, I don't care what the thing is that you're yucking that belongs to somebody else. Whenever you have if you do this, or you've done it, or you think about it or whatever, or you're witnessing somebody else, let's think about why we're doing it. Why did that person do that to this other person? It could be that they're jealous. It could just be that they're angry. They're, hurt, whatever it is. But really at the core, it's like, I look at it and say, what did that add? This person had something they were really happy about, whatever it was, and then somebody else saw fit to yuck all over it. And what did that add to the conversation? Did it make the person who was sharing this experience, this thing, did it make them feel good about it? Their baby or their prom or their wedding or whatever? No. Did it make the other people who witnessed it, did it make them feel good? Because I know I've witnessed things like that, and it doesn't make me feel good. It makes me sad, and it leaves a bad taste in my mouth about the person who did it, especially if you can tell it was purposeful. And I really like to give people the benefit of the doubt, but I think y'all have probably experienced this, especially y'all who are about my age or older. You've met a lot of people in your life. You probably know by now, some people really do relish in making other people feel bad. And it's a big bummer. Also, I want to bring this up. This isn't like a justification, but this isn't like, your friend or your sister or whatever got a new dress and she really loves it, and maybe you go to your spouse or somebody else and go, oh my gosh, she wore this dress that the color just was not for her, or maybe that was not. This is not the same. That's a different thing. That's either gossiping or just kind of being what Southerners will call being ugly, or whatever. That's a different thing. We're talking about this person comes into a room and, oh my gosh, you guys, at this table of my friends, I'm pregnant and I'm so excited. And somebody decides to publicly blurt out at the table, well, you're not even married, or do you even know who the father is, or whatever the thing is. If they're excited about it and they're announcing this in an excited way, that is absolutely never an invitation for somebody to yuck all over someone else's yum. Whatever the thing is. It's never an acceptable thing to do. And if you look at the root of it and you go, gosh, why did I say that? Well, it was obviously to either make this other person feel bad, attract attention to yourself by oh, well, she just sucked all the attention, so I'm going to say this mean thing so everyone will turn and look at me. Those are the two kind of big ones that I have witnessed. Or, it could be other things. I'm unhappy for her. It's not said out of a genuine place of concern. And there's also a time and a place to have those genuine conversations of concern if you are indeed concerned. Like, hey, we should talk about, I'm concerned about where your life choices are taking you, or are you healthy? Are you feeling okay? I'm just concerned about you, and this seems like a rash decision or a big decision. Are you comfortable? Are you good? Like, that's coming from a place of concern, and you're not doing it publicly where you're admonishing this person, right? Or you're criticizing them publicly. So different things here. And what we're really talking about is when somebody just decides to make something negative out of something that someone else sees as positive, or that the majority of people see as a positive. So the gender reveal one, I've been seeing a ton of that because that's been on the rise. It just is. And the new sentiment seems to be, you know what my gender reveal was when I had my kids? It was when the doctor held up my baby and said what the gender was. Well, okay, Janice, great. By the way, if that's anybody's name on this video, I don't know that. I'm not looking at these. I'm just throwing names out there. It's great that that's what you did, but times change, things are different. Also, back when I was an 80s baby, shortly before me, my sisters, that technology wasn't available and or affordable to my family to find out the gender. So my mom didn't do that. It was a surprise. And if you want to elect to have a surprise today, you can do that. But it literally hurts you in no way for somebody else to do a big thing. I literally do not care if they rent a yacht and tow a banner behind it, as long as they're doing it safely and cleanly. They're not affecting, ruining things for other people, like property kind of a thing, and throwing it in the sea afterward and making litter. It doesn't bother me. If you want to fly it high in the sky, then you do that. It is your money, your time, your announcement. And I think that's fantastic that you want to announce it and you want to celebrate. Because the truth of the matter is, and if we really start to think about these things more deeply, you have no clue why that person's actually celebrating. Is it because they have struggled with infertility for a decade? Really think about that. You don't know these people, especially when we're talking about the internet. You have no idea. You've seen a tiny glimpse of them on a video or whatever. You don't know anything about them. Maybe that person, had a bad relationship before and they weren't in a, safe place to have children. They thought they were never going to have kids, and now they've met a safe partner and they're able to have kids. Maybe they couldn't financially, afford it, so they were waiting, and now they've done the work to, land the dream job. There are so many things. Here's the thing about infertility too, and a lot of people go, oh, but I bet you it's not that. But you know what? I'm just going to throw some quick statistics at you. For one, you have no clue who the faces are around you who are struggling with infertility. It is still such a very taboo subject that we don't talk about it and people don't want to hear because it makes them uncomfortable. But you will have no clue if your own family members are struggling with it, your neighbors. And I'll tell you right now, those of you who don't know, I am one of those faces. My husband and I are both one of those faces. We have been married since 2014. We were married on 12/13/14, and we got engaged on 12/13/13. And prior to that, we were together. We've been together since we were teenagers. And I probably should have known sooner that, nothing ever happened. And we have been going through active fertility treatment now since 2015. 3 different clinics, so many different doctors, so many different tests. Both of us have been poked, prodded, tested, x-rayed, all the tests you can possibly do, and then some, multiple times, medications, shots, all the things. So many things. And I'm at a place now where I can talk about it. For a few years, I was not, because it was so taboo and I didn't know that other people struggled with it. So it was one of those things that we were young. I didn't know, we didn't know what to do. Nothing was working. And it was like, well, we'll just go to a doctor. We'll get tested. It'll be fine. We'll figure it out. And then it, wasn't fine. And still to this day, by the way, we don't know. Everything, according to every doctor, test, everything we've done is perfect. And I am constantly told the same thing, which used to be really hurtful, but now you just deal with it. Oh, well, everything is perfectly fine. You'll be pregnant in no time. Well, if that was the case, I'd have 5 children and be living in a shoe by now. So you never ever know who's struggling. And we'll get into that on a totally different, because I could go down a whole tangent about infertility stuff that is, in my opinion, actually really interesting. Even though I'm somebody who's going through it, it's crazy the amount of stuff that you don't know. That we make assumptions about, we have no idea. People don't talk about it because it's so taboo. It's crazy the amount of stuff that goes in with all of this and how very little scientists and doctors actually know. Because when I went into this, I thought, well, they have all the answers. We know all the things. They can tell us what's wrong. They know 3% about birth, conception, all of that. So that's kind of nuts when you find out, oh, these people actually don't have any of the answers. But anyway, back to the subject of gender reveals and just this issue of infertility. You have no idea why they're celebrating. But just worldwide statistic here for you to throw out there. 1 in 6 people struggle with infertility. 1 in 6. There might be 6 people who live in your house. And you might be one of the 6. Or it might be one of your kids or a different generation. Think about how many people live on your block. 1 in 6. So then also think about, maybe you have a child, you go to school to drop them off. How many of those kids in your kids' class were a struggle for that family to conceive? 1 in 6, and that's worldwide. That's not America. So that's just worldwide in general, what we know. And that's as of 2023. And those numbers are steadily going up for lots of reasons. So it's kind of nuts when you start to think about that. Next time you're in a Starbucks, think about that. 1 in 6. If there's 6 cars in line with you at that Starbucks, it's very likely that somebody may be on their way to an infertility appointment or on their way from one. And they might be having a really bad day. Because I'll tell you right now, with infertility treatment, most of your days are bad. Even when you're not going to an appointment. But again, that's another say it while you sew that we'll talk about if anybody's interested in that one. But just, there are so many things that you have no idea why somebody is celebrating. And in regards to a gender reveal, I get it. People are like, oh, I'm getting invited to so many of these gender reveals. You know what that says to me? You have a lot of friends who are celebrating a really big thing. And they want you to know about it. And is it really such a problem to celebrate our friends or our family, our coworker? And maybe you feel weird about getting the invite, right? Well, why did she invite me? We've only worked together for a year or 2. Because you know what? Maybe they just don't have anybody else to celebrate with. Or maybe they really like you. So think about that too. There's a lot of things in life we should be celebrating. And we should be celebrating for a few reasons. but one of which is this core part that you never know why they were celebrating. Like, think of 2 reasons off the top of your head that I haven't already mentioned, because there's a ton why this could be such a huge deal to somebody, right? And so why feel the need to yuck on their yum? You don't have to throw them a parade either or do cartwheels, but here's what you don't have to do. If you get invited to a gender reveal and you don't want to go, then just don't go. Politely decline, send a gift if you want. Don't send a gift and politely decline. And then, you know what? In the privacy of your own home, not on the internet where people can see it, not publicly, not whatever. If you have to get those feelings out that you are so annoyed and so attacked and hurt that somebody else is choosing to celebrate their event, then do that. But publicly yucking someone else's yum literally does nothing for anybody. And as a society, we are getting like into this. I have really noticed it's become a trend. It doesn't matter what the thing is. It's like, it's the cool thing to do now. I don't know. I got to a stuck point here cutting. I have to run next door really quick. So if you need a break, I have to cut my other pieces on the fold here, and I'll have my dumb little templates. So I'll be right back. I'm going to grab those. They should be done. Okay, got these here little templates. So now we're gonna try these out. So that's like thing 1 that just keeps popping up on my radar is these gender reveals. And you know, one of these things we probably ought to talk about at some other one of these points in our little mental health talks is projection. I am probably projecting some of my own personal feelings because I'm going through it onto some of these negative comments I see. But even if I am, it's a strong possibility. Again, who is it benefiting? Let's put it that way. Let's label it that way. Who does it benefit to say a mean thing about someone else's happy thing? And the answer really is nobody. It certainly doesn't benefit the person who the news belongs to, right? So like, why say it? What is it adding? And it probably doesn't make anyone else who witnesses it feel good. I'll tell y'all right now, one of my guilty pleasures, it's it's a blessing and a curse, because sometimes it makes my day and other days it absolutely ruins it because it like sucks my faith out of humanity, is comment sections. I've told you guys this before. I don't read my own comment sections. Not really. My husband pre-moderates the YouTube channel for comments that are made after the fact. And if they're like real bad, which does not happen often, he just deletes them because nobody needs to see that. His general opinion is that nobody needs to read it. Like, not you guys, not me. If it doesn't come from a place of care, or, you know, learning or funny or positive, he's like, you know what, nobody needs to read that because nobody goes on your YouTube channel to hear like mean things. And I agree, nobody's here for that. So we just remove them, and that's how that goes. So that being said, I don't really deal with them often in my own situation, but I love to like go on Facebook Reels or whatever and read the comments because I want to know people's opinion about things. I'm so interested, like, most of the time. Usually the kind of stuff I watch is like science-y kind of things, home decor stuff, gardening, because that's what I'm into. I don't watch a lot of it pertaining to sewing or crafting because I already do that. So I'm trying to, like, you know, do something else. Okay, well, that looks viable. Hopefully the math is correct. So, you know, all that being said, I don't deal with it too often in my own life, which is, you know, good. It's not personal, but I do see it a lot. And that's why I'm like, you know, we should talk about this. I've seen it a lot with the gender reveal situation, but I've also seen it a lot pertaining to prom. So speaking about that situation, I only went to one of my proms, and it was, let me see. It was my junior year. I did not get to do senior prom because those of you who, again, know this story. I was no longer living at home. I was on my own, actually living with Corey, my now husband, kind of out of necessity, not really wanting to. I just did not have anywhere else to go. So, and I did not leave my house willingly. So that's available on some other, sorry, I'm trying to measure here. That's available on some other videos, but the long and short of it is, yes, I finished high school, finished my high school career, I should say, living on my own, working 3 jobs at that point, and, you know, trying to pay rent and survive as an adult, all while pretending that wasn't happening so my school, you know, wouldn't know and kick me out. And it, you know, it wasn't by choice. So anyway, but the one prom I did go to is my junior prom. Corey took me. I was really excited to go, but at that time prom was different. Lots of kids. So here's the thing that was cool about not cool to me, but like the cool thing to do. Back then, most people rented a Hummer or an Escalade limo. That was like the big new thing at that time. Oh shoot, I need 2 of these. Dang it. Okay, well, we'll cut another one. I hate that. My fabric was all folded and perfect. Then I unfolded it. There we go. So Corey took me, you know, I got a very cheap dress. I was working, you know, multiple jobs in high school before I ever even moved out of my family's home. And so I saved up what I could, but it was not a lot. And the area that Corey and I grew up in was really weird. It was like, how do I explain this? A lot of the kids had way too much access to way too much money and no parental guidance, like at all for the most part. So there were kids at my school, lots of them, who drove cars that were like the same cost as my family home. And then it was really weird too, because you'd think from the outside looking in like, oh, well, that girl's parents, you know, must do really well. Like they must be really rich. And then you'd go over to that kid's house for like a group project and they live in a house that's like not worth the car that the kid is driving, which is really bizarre just from a standpoint of like financial logistics. And then you find out that they're, you know, some of the kids, this wasn't the case. There was a lot of doctors and lawyers in the area. It was a very well-to-do area. But it's like their daughter is carrying a purse that is like my parents' mortgage payment times 5. And then, you know, it was a really weird, you could tell it was all like a front. And again, you do you. If your parents want to provide that for you, then I'm happy for you. I wasn't jealous of it, but it was kind of weird. It was like, wow. And my family was not like that at all. My parents were really kind of like, I mean, it was a weird situation. My parents were not an example for sure. But, you know, I was raised on like you shouldn't value people for what they have. You shouldn't, you know, do things like that because that stuff doesn't last. You know, you should like people for who they are, content of your character, all that kind of stuff. So it was really weird to be surrounded by this. And it also was very like flashy, look at me, but it was weird when you're like a 16-year-old kid, a 14-year-old kid. So here I am in like my thrifted, super cheap clearance prom dress in 2000, what was this? 2000 and, trying to think, 2006, I think it was my junior year. I think that's right, because I was supposed to graduate in 07. So technically this might have been 2005. No, it would have been 2006, because prom is early in the year, so it would have been after the year cutoff. So, oops, I need to turn my press up. Turn this press up, it is not hot enough. Oh yeah, I have that set on like nothing. Well, that would have made fusing a pain in the butt. Okay. Let me double count my pieces here. I'm going to cut all the outside and then cut all the waterproof canvas at the same time so I can get my stuff off my table. I think that's everything I want on a canvas, but we won't put that too far. So, actually I lied. I think I want the little tabs and all that out of the canvas too, because I'm trying to make this, I just want to see what it's like, you know, being uber domestic friendly with thin material. So let me see if there's something I want to fussy cut. I don't know if there's anything big enough. This is a really large print and I like it, but it's big. Maybe the sandworm. Maybe the sandworm. Anyway, so, I mean, I just remember prom being a very different experience, and that's fine. It, you know, I just wanted to go and be pretty, and it was a fun, you know, it was a rite of passage. It's prom, you know, like, so knowing what I know now as an adult about prom, and this is kind of what I think is a little weird, and I'm not going to say it's unbelievable, but a little bit strange to me that adults would be yucking all over these kids. So here's the backstory. I see a lot of like these prom, I saw one the other day where the girl was waiting for her date to like come and, you know, view her dress or whatever, what they call like a first look. And this comment section, I mean, the girl looked absolutely beautiful. The boy was absolutely excited to see her. You know, they very clearly were a little embarrassed because mom and dad were there. The families were watching, you know. But everybody in this comment section was like far too excited about being negative on this sweet young girl and her beautiful dress. And the sentiment was, when did we start treating proms like a wedding? Over and over and over again. And I just thought to myself, you know what? That is ridiculous. I hope the internet is a big place, and I hope that this girl never sees those kinds of comments about her dress and her whatever, because there was a whole bunch of them and they were, you know, largely negative. A lot of shaming things because of her size and, oh, well, her mom shouldn't have let her wear that. Lots of that kind of stuff, which is totally bonkers. But also this whole thing about, you know, when did we start, her dress is too big, you know, basically saying that this girl shouldn't have made the choices that she made for her dress and all that, you know, because it's just prom. And I think to myself, you know what? Okay. And here's where we get into some of these things that I told y'all about with self-harm. There is, I'm sure you know, and possibly dealt with this yourself, a lot of other bullying and self-harm, harmful thoughts, sad thoughts, depressive thoughts, all those things that go on with being a teenager, with being that age. And it isn't just in high school. These days, statistically, it looks like it starts at about 8 years old. So let's just say for a minute there that this girl has had a struggle since she was 8 years old. And it could be anything. It could be an eating disorder, problems at home with mom and dad, financial problems, you know, with the family at any given point in her life, struggles with school, struggles with her self-image, maybe a combination of those things. You have no, again, you've glimpsed this much of this person on the internet, on your screen for this amount of time. So to make some kind of a weird judgment call about a person you do not know and what she's putting on her body, that her body's not covered enough or her body's too big to be wearing what it is or whatever, is like insane to me. And I get it. We all have these kinds of thoughts where we go, well, that color could have been better, or I wish that fit that person better, or whatever. I'm not shaming anybody else necessarily for having these thoughts because we're all human. But what I am saying is there is absolutely zero reason to make a public comment about this. I mean, we need to strive to not have these kinds of thoughts and just be a little bit more positive, not only to other people, but ourselves. But, you know, again, what are you doing it for? Who are you doing this for? Who's it helping? Because it's not going to help that young girl. She's not going to look at this and go, wow, this made me feel really good. Of course she's not going to. That's messed up. You know, saying these mean things about this poor young girl. So those are my zipper gusset strips. It's crazy to me that grown adult people are sitting here making comments about this person that they don't know. They have no idea about this person's background or their life. It's nuts to me. And again, I just say, don't yuck somebody else's yum. This is a young person who is having a great time, you know, as good of a time as they can have. You have no idea what it took for them to get that dress in my case, I'm sure a lot of you would look at my dress and think it was so ugly. I think it was ugly now. It was some of my favorite colors and are still some of my favorite colors because it was like a seafoam green and peach. And I love those colors. Almost the exact color of my ceiling up there. Really, really, really light. I could not afford to have my hair styled professionally, so I bought this really big, ugly hairpiece thing. It was not the same shade as my color of hair. I dyed my own hair to try to match it, like a dark brown. This big ponytail thing, it cascaded down my back. I had press-on nails, but that was all the money I could afford. And I had to save a lot, really, to be able to do that. And it's like, but that took me a ton of effort, and I really just wanted to go to prom and get away from all the issues in my family that were always going on. I just wanted to have a good time. And, I did, but, I already felt bad enough that I didn't have the Hummer limo like a lot of the other kids. And I already felt, weird that, everyone else's parents were taking pictures of them on prom night. And when my boyfriend, now my husband, came to pick me up, my parents couldn't have cared less that I was leaving. And, we're probably having a screaming match, which was normal for them, So there was already stuff going on. I would not have needed anybody to make me feel any more uncomfortable or bad about my situation. So, I'm very thankful that no one really did. I didn't have to deal with that, but that's not the case for these young people. And this one instance, this wasn't even the first time I've seen that. I have seen so much of it. I'm trying to decide about my interior zipper pocket, or my, I'm going to do a slip pocket on these because I just don't like doing a zipper on the inside. I don't need to. That should be enough for all of my little widget pieces. Okay. I think maybe I will do a zipper pocket or a slip pocket in this because I'm doing a solid green lining. So I think one more piece and then I'm done. Trying to conservatively cut all of this. Not that way though, this way. Otherwise it'll be upside down. Anyway, yeah, just yucking somebody else's yum. It's crazy to me that an adult, anybody, I don't care who you are, thinks that that's an okay thing to do. One of the more kind of recent different situation that I can bring up besides the prom situation and the infertility situation, this happened within our own sewing community, and I'm sad about it. I'm disappointed. We kind of touched on this at the time when it happened, and I was like, don't ever let me catch you doing that on my channel or in my group because I will remove you so fast. There's not many people I would do anything like that, with, but I'm not tolerating that. There was a member of our community who is a big name sewist. She was sewing, I believe, on a live video. I was not there. I was told about it secondhand by multiple people who were appalled by it, who were like, oh my God, did you see this happen? And I didn't, and I'm glad that I didn't, but it still made me really sad. And this is what I was saying about yucking someone else's yum. Not only did you yuck her yum, it was actually her sister's yum, both of them really, but everybody who witnessed this thing, it had a ripple effect. Because I didn't even know it happened. I woke up to some messages in my PMs with screenshots and people were like, did you see this happen? Did you see how horrible this person was? Look how mean this is. And it hurt me. I wasn't there for it. It wasn't aimed at me, but it hurt me. It hurt my heart. And I just was like, oh my God, this is awful. And it was literally just that whoever this person was, they thought that it was okay to make public comments about this person's YouTube video about well, why are you even on here? You don't even have any talent or something like that. And it was horrible, so horrible. And I'm still in shock about it. I don't know who does that and what must be going through your mind that you think it's an okay thing to do that and put that on display. But to do it anyway, but to do it publicly at all, it was appalling to me. And so this kind of goes in that same vein. Again, who did that add anything for? Because it wasn't helpful to the video. The people watching the video didn't learn anything. The one thing they learned is that you're nasty and mean. And, it took away from the people who were putting the video on, the whole community. I'm certain that other people left that situation with their heart hurt. It sucks. And so in the case of, like these prom things, I see young people owning an event that, frankly, what I was saying is, as an adult now, what I know. When was the last time you got to put on a super flamboyant, fabulous, sparkly, floor-length dress and go into a room of a whole bunch of other people dressed like that too and not be like embarrassed about it, get to own it and have a fantastic time? The answer is probably never, because none of us are getting invited to Met Galas. None of us are getting, what's the closest thing? My husband's company used to have a corporate Christmas party every year, but then COVID put the end to that. And I don't know if they're ever going to bring them back, but they used to be really heavily themed. It was like prom for adults. And I loved it. I thought it was amazing. And we got to go every year. And the decor they put up, it was always themed. So they did like Elf, Christmas in the City in New York City. They built a literal New York skyline in a venue, you guys. It was so cool. We had a 1920s one. There was, it's been years though now since COVID, so I can't even remember. And we missed a few of them as well from traveling, but it was really, really cool. And I was so bummed to have missed that. And the few years that we had to miss it. And then now I miss it a ton because they don't do them anymore. Going to the press. So, but when was the last time you got to put on an expensive, ridiculous dress? And also, when was the last time that somebody celebrated you doing it? Probably your wedding, if that even happened for you. Some weddings are not what we plan for them to be. Some of them, we plan a big, beautiful affair and it turns sad for whatever reason. It rains. Maybe our affair had to be, canceled because of COVID. Maybe you didn't want a big, crazy, fancy wedding. Maybe you weren't able to have one and you did want one. Lots of lots of possibilities. But the long and the short of it, as far as that goes, is when was the last time you got to have that? So why are we seeing young people celebrating themselves and doing something fun and crapping all over it because they chose to wear an expensive dress? I see other things where it's like, this, why is their family treating it like a wedding? Let's go backward here to, you have no idea what those people went through. Maybe they had another child and they lost that child. Tragic things happen every day. And perhaps they no longer have that other person in their life, or perhaps they almost didn't have their child in their life. So they're choosing to celebrate today for what it is. You got to think about this from a 10,000 foot view instead of this right up close thing. And I would challenge you, if your tendency is to look at things from a really up close view and not from that broader view, take a step back. Here's your initial response. You just had it. And before you publicly say anything about it, take a step back. Put yourself in those shoes and try to apply your situation. Like, well, when I was young, this thing happened to me. Or if I were having a child, this is how it would, what I would want. I would want someone to celebrate me. Or maybe their thing is a baby, but your thing is when you got a new job that you were really excited about, or you moved to a big city, or you made a big financial purchase and you wanted somebody to be happy for you and celebrate with you, and that maybe didn't happen, right? Or not only did nobody celebrate with you, but maybe someone else yucked your yum. Like, think about that for a minute and then put that in your brain and keep it in like your front pocket and challenge yourself. And again, I'm not saying that I'm not guilty of these things, because I definitely am, which is why I say this expression all the time: don't yuck someone else's yum. Because it helps me to remember that just because someone else likes something doesn't mean that I have to like it, but I also don't have to publicly make a whole thing out of it. And also, just because I don't like it doesn't mean somebody else can't. So, these are things, it's important. As a society, it really, really is important that we stop doing this stuff where we want to make people feel bad all the time for the things that they like or want to do. The only time I'm ever going to tell you to make a, real judgment call on yucking someone else's yum is if your yum happens to be yucking someone else's yum. If that's your pastime and you like being mean and making other people feel bad, get some introspection going on there and figure out why that is. Because it takes a lot of energy to do anything. And if you're spending your energy being mean to other people and it makes you feel good to make them feel bad, then look at why you do that. Because I know if you start really self-examining, you're going to go, ooh, you know what? I have some unresolved issues. And you're either going to need to do the work or figure out how to step out of that or whatever you need to do. There are multiple avenues, but it's not acceptable to just keep going, oh, well, I like being mean, so that's my thing, so don't yuck my yum. No, you need to not do that. You need to not be mean to people. And that's why I say if the only way that you can survive is by going home at the end of the night and writing down a whole list of, or saying it into a tape recorder, whatever, out loud to your dog, whatever it is, and just being mean and getting it all out, then do that. But don't publicly hurt somebody else. Like, don't bring it to their attention. They don't need to know. You're not adding anything to their life or conversation. And the other people who are experiencing it secondhand, I can tell you they're not enjoying it. They're like, whoa, that was really gross. And now I feel weird and gross. I don't like that. So I'm counting up all my pieces here, and then I'm ready to do canvas. I'm ready to do canvas, I think. So that's kind of the topic. I mean, if y'all have, I know you're probably sewing or cutting like I am. Anybody who wants to share anything, please do. Like, that's kind of the whole point of this. We're like talking about this stuff back and forth. I can give you a few, not a ton, but I do have a few examples of people who, yucked my yum, and who were just mean. Another version, by the way, that I really like of this same saying is, and it's similar veined, not exactly the same, but I really like this one. Don't let your ice cream melt while counting someone else's sprinkles. It's not a perfect parallel, but it is the same vein, because while you're looking at someone else and making mean comments and doing whatever you're doing, instead of appreciating the thing in front of you and letting them appreciate what's going on with them and appreciating the beauty of what's possibly going on with them, whole lots of other stuff is passing you by and things are happening. So it's not exactly a super parallel, but again, it kind of goes in that same vein. But other versions of this saying, like I said, are, don't rain on people's parades. And then one of the other, a real parallel version of this that hits it straight to the point. It's one of my favorite content creators to follow. And if you are not following her, I would highly suggest it. Her name is Tabitha Brown. She's on like all platforms and places, and she even actually has a show on, I think it's Netflix now, for kids, called Tab Time, T-A-B, like Tabitha. And one of her sayings, at least I think it's her saying, but I credit it to her, she says it all the time and has forever, is if you can't have a good day, don't go messing up anybody else's. And the first time I heard that, I thought to myself, you know what, as a person like me, I'm not crazy, bubbly, over the top, I'm kind of middle of the road, a little, 1 foot on either side kind of a thing, who I have to actively work for positivity. I have to actively work for happy and super joy. I have to choose joy. It doesn't necessarily come right out of me when I wake up, kind of a thing. That really resonated with me, because sometimes you just wake up on the wrong side of the bed and you're just not having a good day, and it's like, you know what, there's no saving this. I'm just going to keep to myself. I'm just going to do my stuff, put my head down, and just tomorrow will be better. But in that same vein, you don't have to go out of your way to make other people feel rotten. Like, it just, why? I don't understand that. So anyway, that's kind of the whole thing with the yucking somebody else's yum. That's the whole idea behind it. There's a million different ways and reasons that we can talk about that and bring it up. But the real gist of it is there's no reason to do it. This is a, personal experience, but a time when it happened to me, it was excuse me, my nose, always so runny. Scratchy, I mean. There's a comedian that I really like, that I enjoy, and much like everything, not everything is for you. So you don't have to love the thing that I love. It's not a condition to be friends with me. But a condition to be friends with me is you have to not be mean to me. You have to not shit all over me, you know? If that's the kind of person you're going to be, then we're not going to be friends. You know, be nice or go away is kind of where I'm at these days. So I was in a group chat, which I've mentioned this, I think, before. I really hate group chats. I've never had a positive experience in them, and I always seem to get added to them, and they turn into little, like, viper nests is how I would describe it. I don't know why. Can somebody tell me why? Do you guys have that same problem, by the way? They always start out fine, and either they fizzle out and just go away, and that's the best case scenario, or they get weird, and everyone that's in the chat starts, like, being mean and weird. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like you get into this weird little nest, and then everybody starts, like, one person kind of poisons the well a little bit, and then everybody in there just starts getting, like, I don't know, mean, nasty. All the comments suddenly turn into mean and nasty, and I'm just over here like, when did this turn into a crap talking group? Like, can we not? And I always struggle with them because, like, I hate when I get added to them, but I don't want to offend anybody, so I just end up kind of lurking in these groups and not really saying much, and, you know, I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, I got added to a group chat with a person. I mean, I no longer speak to any of them because they just kind of showed themselves to not be very nice people, frankly, and I was like, you know what, I'm out. But one of the last things that happened in this group chat, and this was supposedly my best friend in this group chat, right off the bat, I should have known something was up with this group chat because I got added to it, you know, without being asked, but everyone that was in this group chat knew that the main person in this group chat had really hurt me very deeply and had never apologized for it, had basically turned around and pretended like it didn't happen. And so that was weird because there was like 6 of us in there, and everyone knew, including the person who hurt me, who was in this group, like knew that this had happened. Were like, oh wow, that's so messed up. I can't believe she did that to you. And I was like, yeah, it's really not cool. So I'm just going to stay away from her. And then they decided to add me to a group chat with her. So that was weird. And anyway, so I didn't know how to leave. I didn't know how to set that boundary. Privately, I had told my best friend, hey, I'm not really comfortable being in this chat. Like, I think, you know, I'm uncomfortable. I don't want to do this. And it really makes me feel weird. We had a discussion about this on a different Say It While You Sew, briefly, where I talked about when somebody sets a boundary and they tell you, hey, this is what I need, or I can't handle this, you should be respectful of it, especially if you care about that person. And if you're setting boundaries and people are not respecting them, that's a red flag. So this was that situation. I said, you know, hey, I'm really not comfortable being in a group chat with her. I really want to stay away from her. I'm not cool with this. And I was met by my best friend saying, if you don't stay in that group chat, you're just being petty. You know, you should just get over it and just be in this group chat. And so I thought, okay, well, I don't want to be petty. But really what it was is this person wanted me in there for I don't know what reason. And it turned bad quickly. This person obviously did not have my best interest at heart, and what I did was express a boundary that I needed for my mental health, and she just straight up did not care. And furthermore, what ended up happening was, like I said, the little weird creepy viper nest thing. As the months went on that I was in this group chat, the other 5 people or so that were in it were really active, and I just kind of wasn't because I was busy, and I didn't really want to be in there because all they did was crap talk other people, and it was making me really uncomfortable, and I just didn't agree with, frankly, a lot of the things they were saying, and there was a lot. So personally, I'm over here like wigging out a little bit, like, I don't want to be a part of this. And you know, it was just uncomfortable. So I'm in this chat. I would just share benign things like, oh, this is my dog, or I got my nails done, or whatever. Like, I didn't participate in the rest of it, especially because the person who had hurt me was in there, and I didn't want to like let them in on my personal life or business life or anything. But I would just try to participate a little bit and just be aloof. Well, so one day I shared this comedian that I really enjoyed. Now, he may not be for everybody. I get that. I worked in restaurants, and his comedy is centered around working in restaurants. And so I just shared this video that he had posted that day. about the jokes were about sexual harassment training at work because it was like national sexual harassment training. One of the people in that group chat, my best friend, had said, oh, we just had to do sexual harassment training at work. So this video fit in kind of perfectly with what she was saying they had to do. And I just simply made the comment of, oh, is this you at work? And then I posted the little video about going through the training seminar. And instead of just not saying anything, laughing about it, just anything, saying nothing, and she knew that I really liked this comedian. I had shared this person with her before, and she never said anything about it. So I didn't think not to share. Her response very publicly in front of this whole group and purposefully, it was very obvious it was purposeful, was not to laugh or say anything else, but you've shared that person with me before, and I just don't find him funny. It was like very to the point, period, sentences, short and choppy, like, again. And so it was like, oh, okay, wow. And there had been some other behavior like that was going on in there. So it really let me know that language and like the way that she was talking, which was not normal for her. It really clued me in on like, oh, cool. Okay. So like, this is kind of my cue to go. So this is how the friendship ended. In fact, my response was just simply like, oh, okay, well, that's cool that you don't like it. I won't share it anymore. No problem. That was it. But privately, because I didn't feel like it was a good thing to do publicly, but something had happened with her and I, obviously. There was a weird shift right there. I did not like the way that she spoke to me. I didn't really like the way that kind of publicly happened. It was all very odd. So privately, I went over into our private chat and I just said, hey, like, is something wrong? I wanted to let you know that, like, I didn't really feel comfortable with that. I thought that was kind of mean, and it's okay that you don't like what I don't like, but like, that wasn't cool. And do we need to talk about something? Like, what's happening? At which point she just launched into this barrage of how she's hated me for the longest time, and she's mad at me, and I'm a monster and a terrible person and all kinds of crazy shit that I was like, whoa, that's not at all what this was, but okay, let's talk about it. And then she just got super nasty, accusatory, like it turned into a whole other thing. So very clearly, I mean, I picked up on what I thought I picked up on. Whole thing got really weird. And that's literally how the friendship ended after 2.5 years. So it was really odd. And then she turned around immediately and became super duper ultra public, flashy, in your face best friends with the person who was super hurtful to me. So that was even weirder because it was like, wow, this person that for years you claimed to have disliked and claimed to tell me she's manipulating me and mean to me, you're literally, like, you just publicly did this thing to me where you totally yucked my yum in front of everybody for no reason. And I asked her this when it happened. I just said, well, why did you say that though? Like, what was the point? What did it add? It certainly wasn't to make me feel good about what I shared. And it didn't. It made me feel bad. It hurt my feelings. So I'm sorry if you don't like it, but like, I was just sharing something that I found funny that, I was just sharing a thing that I found funny. Wasn't mean, it wasn't offensive, like it was just a very benign thing, and you just like totally shit all over me and then use that as a segue to then like bring up apparently every grievance you've ever had, a lot of this stuff frankly being made up. I didn't say that, but I just said like the reality for me doesn't match up with what you're saying here. Can we talk about this more? Can you please explain it to me? I think we need to discuss it. I was open to doing that. Obviously she was not, and she totally stonewalled the whole situation and then just decided to like block me, disappear, but then publicly on her business pages and elsewhere she was like, this person is my new BFF, and it was like really weird. So anyway, that kind of led into something else, but that was one of the last times that I had somebody, yuck my yum in front of people, and it was very telling. It was a situation of like, okay, so who was this for? Because you didn't do it for me. It didn't add anything to the conversation in the room. And the funnier thing is when I had shared it, there were people in there who, there were multiples of us in there, and lots of people enjoyed the thing that I shared. They thought it was funny, and they were like, oh, I love that comedian. Like, that's funny. She just decided to like publicly announce and shit all over this, which that was totally unnecessary. You could have just, there's a polite way of doing that. Like, oh, I don't get it. Or like, oh, anything. You didn't have to say it that way. So that's just one of those examples of like, you don't need to be that way. This was obviously with intent to hurt. And that's why I bring this up too about the proms and everything else. A lot of this stuff, it's like, it seems like it really is an intent to hurt because you're not doing anything nice for these young people. It's not helping them. So who are you doing it for? Why crap all over your friend's gender reveal? Who are you doing that for? It's not for them. You're not adding anything to their event. You're not making it happier, that's for sure. So it's just one of those things that it's like, I need a pen. It really does make you wonder the motivation of like, why? And if that is your motivation, being mean to other people and making them feel bad, you should examine that and figure out why that's what you go to. And like in the situation with my friend, when I asked her that point blank and said, who are you doing this for? Because it wasn't to make me feel good. I'm not really sure why you said that. I'm sorry that you did. I wish you wouldn't have, It was like she wasn't even willing to talk about it. There was no apology. There was no, well, I didn't mean to make you feel like there was none of that. It was just, well, screw you and your feelings. I brought all this stuff up and said all these things. Now I'm just going to bounce and leave you in the aftermath of all the stuff I just said to you. I don't own a single pen. What in the heck? I have so many pens. Here we go. So one of the more bizarre instances, but it even goes into real basic stuff, right? Like, if somebody likes music that you don't, I found a pen and it doesn't work. What the heck? There we go. Good grief. Again, they're sharing something with you. I'll also tell you, as an aside, kind of in this way about sharing and yucking someone else's yum, because you may have done it without realizing. Do you have a friend out there, or family member, significant other, who really likes to share with you? Like, they send you memes, they send you songs. That is actually a type of attachment style. Psychologically, that is a bonding ritual for a certain type of person, where they really like to, their favorite song at that time, something they really like, they share it with you. Anything, movies, memes, comics, like anything like that, where they send it to you and they share it with you. That is literally, psychologically for them, what it is they are taking a piece of themselves, something they really enjoyed, and they're giving it to you. And if that is met with a nasty rejection, it's one thing to just go like, oh, that was great. Maybe that artist isn't for me, but like, thanks for sharing it with me or whatever. Or you just don't say much about it, or you just laugh and say, haha. But if you literally ignore it or say like, stop sending me things, or I don't care about that, psychologically, that's actually met as like a really negative kind of thing. The same as if you walked up to somebody and tried to say something or have a conversation and someone was nasty to you. Look into that if you have a family member or a friend who has that attachment style and is interested in things like that, and they send you a lot of stuff, because that literally is them trying to connect with you. I am that type of person. When I get to know you, I will send things like that I think you will find funny. Like, oh, this reminded me of that story you told me, or, oh, you told me about sexual harassment training at work. And I posted this little thing because I thought you would relate or think it was funny or enjoyable. And this is a comedian that I really like. You may do things like that with people and then feel very, very hurt when those people don't reciprocate or pay attention. So you may be one of those people with that attachment style. I'm just letting you know this because I didn't know that was a thing. And I learned that through research and therapy, that I was like, oh, that's a really real thing. And no wonder it feels really bad to me when I do that, because it takes a lot for me to get to that point. And then when I'm ignored, or like in the case of my friend being really mean, it wasn't necessarily that she didn't like the comedian. It was how she said those things to me and how she was. And it was very obvious that it was with intent to hurt and be mean. So I wanted to address, like, literally the reason it had come up is because that was like the 4th or 5th time she'd done that to me in the last month in that group chat. And that's why I came forward to her and said, hey, I want to talk about this because it keeps happening. At which point she just went ballistic. And it was like, cool, so you're literally justifying that you've been mean to me for months and I've been letting it go. Which again, red flag, super red flag. But I just didn't see it at the time. So all I did was apologize, and I apologized for her hurting my own feelings. So, you know, it is what it is, but should have seen the red flags, should have known. I learned a lot of things, but including that was a specific attachment style I thought was really interesting. I did not know. Some people literally bond that way and sharing small bits of themselves with other people. So, if you are that person, I hope you feel seen, because when I discovered that was a thing, I felt very seen. I felt very like, oh my gosh, that's me. That's totally me. And I didn't realize that's why I did that. I thought I was just sharing like with a friend because I thought it was fun. And I do. But there's a reason. There's a reason. Okay. So what I'm doing, by the way, right now is I just cut Peltex for my piece using the template, and this piece sits in the middle. I used it as a guide to mark where it goes. And then I used this to cut it out, the same guide. So I now have placement and I now have this, and I'm just experimenting, making sure that this will work. And then I'm going to put a piece of stabilizer over the top of all of that. And I'm totally freaking confusing all these little pieces because I want to make sure it gets used. So yeah, I'm curious to know if you guys have ever experienced things like this, or if this is all totally new to you and you're like, what are you talking about? I have no idea about any of this. Because again, you know, till I started kind of looking into this stuff, researching, doing therapy, doing journaling, looking for writing prompts, lots of reading, learning about myself, other people. It's all been, you know, kind of new to me in a way. So it's not surprising if you don't know these things. I'm in my 30s and still trying to navigate lots of things in the world that I should have learned when I was younger and I didn't, for a number of reasons. And now it's just like, well, I don't want to be in my 40s and still not know these things. And I also want to be very conscious of how I treat people because, you know, just like I described, I don't like the way that other people have treated me in a lot of cases. And I don't ever want to be somebody's reason for giving up something they love. I don't ever want to be someone's reason for self-doubt or self-harm or, you know, derailing their life. I have been fairly open about a lot of the things that have happened to me this last year. One of which being that whole situation, which spiraled into other things, and how negatively that affected me, to say the least. That's putting it very mildly. I've never come that close in my life to feeling like I didn't want to be here anymore. Like I didn't want to socialize with anybody. Like I didn't want to trust anyone ever again. I've never been that close to those types of feelings personally. I had some times in my life when I got close, but not like this. And it was crazy how much this whole situation really affected my mental health, who all was involved in it. It didn't help that it was my whole personal circle plus business stuff. So there was no way for me to get away from it, it felt like, and it just kept escalating, even though I would distance myself, and it kept following me and escalating. So that made it worse. And so, you know, it just kept getting worse. And a big part of how that was going on, and actually I need to interface these two, how that was happening was, you know, again, like just yucking other people's yum. Oh, I'm just going to make you feel bad because I can. I know right where to hit you. These people specifically had a personal relationship with me for a long time and knew my weaknesses and knew kind of where I felt insecure, how I felt insecure, and felt good about exploiting that and saying, oh, well, I know this makes you feel vulnerable or this makes you feel bad, so I'm just going to do this or say this and, you know, make you feel awful. And I'm going to keep doing it because it brings me pleasure. And there's literally no other reason than that. I mean, it's all very easily explained. And that's not just me saying that. I mean, that's other people that were involved in this whole thing too that saw it play out, and they were just like, wow, like this person really gets off on being this way. How gross. It's like, yeah, it is pretty gross. So, just crazy to me how people think, again, going back to just strangers on the internet, like, oh, let's just be mean to these young kids who are just trying to have a good time at their prom. Isn't that crazy to think that people are like that? And that takes a lot of effort. I think if you wrote down all of the negative things you had to say, mean things that you wanted to say to people, after a while, if you just wrote them down for yourself and like not put them on a public comment section or set it to someone's face or whatever, I think you would find that it takes a lot of energy and you'd probably stop doing it. That's my assumption. I've never taken the time to do it and I won't because there's just no reason. We all have bad days. We all say things we regret, that's for sure. But there just seems to be a very systematic thing going on in our society at this point where it's like cool to crap all over other people's stuff and just be mean. And I really don't get it. It's like we think it's cool to make other people feel bad just for existing, which is so odd to me. If you don't like something, you just move on from it. I don't mean that in the way of like you shouldn't say something if you see something bad. If you see somebody getting bullied or being mistreated, you should 100% step up and say something about it. The only way that anything ever changes is if people say, hey, that behavior is not okay, and I'm not going to stand by and watch it and allow it. And it's crazy we have to do that as adults, but we do, unfortunately, because I think too much of this like turning a blind eye to stuff has been going on, and this is where we're at. It's acceptable to make comments about small children's weights, young adults' dressing choices, other people's decisions about how they're going to live their life, how they want to reveal and celebrate the, upcoming birth of their child. It's crazy. Crazy, crazy. And I would even venture to say, when you see people being mean like that and being ugly, it's helpful and important to turn around in the face of that and put something else into it, right? Compliment something positive, some light, some levity. So if you see somebody else, whatever, you maybe don't have the courage to publicly say, hey, person making this comment, why are you being so nasty? What you can do is say, well, I really like that dress, and I think she looks great. Or, I think it's nice when young people decide they're going to own their event and have a good time. And I hope it was a nice night for them. Because not only does that feel good for you, but it feels good for the other people who are seeing it. And it kind of restores a little bit of faith in humanity. And I say that in all seriousness because I have been on the other end of this, negativity that wasn't directed at me, and it just makes you feel gross, right? But then when I see somebody else make a nice comment, other people kind of banding together and saying, no, this is great, or hey, here's a good idea, or here's a positive thing I'm going to add to this, it feels really good. It adds, light where there was darkness again. Where I just felt sadness reading this last thing, now all of a sudden I'm like, oh, but that made it better. Now my faith is a little restored in humanity because somebody's being nice. I knew there were nice people out there, And you need that. In the situation where all this stuff went down with my friends, I was very lucky. I say friends. They're obviously not my friends. They're very crappy people. But luckily, one thing that came out of it, and I'm really sad that I had to deal with it and witness any of it, some of the people in that situation, I already knew their true colors. Other people very quickly revealed themselves to me, and I'm happy that they did. I mean, I'm sad that it happened, but I'm happy that they did. And it was one of those okay, well, now I know, so I can make an educated decision going forward. It was still really hurtful, but at least I know. And it's one of those I'm glad that I know, but I really wish I wouldn't have had to experience it, kind of things. So I guess much like in the case of these young people and people with gender reveals and other stuff, I mean, you'll find out who people are. They will show you their true colors. If they're not happy for you, they're going to make it known. Obviously, they can't help themselves. But, you know, I guess at least you'll know. But it makes me feel bad for them. Makes me feel bad that you have to go through these things to figure out, like, wow, these people really don't have my best interest at heart. You know, they don't feel good about my celebration. They're just gonna crap all over it. Which is just sad to me. It's like, you get invited to a gender reveal and you don't want to go, then just don't go. I struggle personally a little bit, and this may not be the right way of describing this, but I mentioned to y'all some of the things that were going on in my household growing up, and one of the things that I really struggle with is like being positive and showing joy about things without fear, because that was always exploited, you know, where I grew up and how I grew up. And so it made me very fearful, like, well, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to get chastised for liking this thing or, you know, trying something new or whatever. And I'm learning to explore the fact that not everybody is like that, right? They're not gonna chastise you for feeling good about stuff. But it's hard. It's weird. And it makes me very vulnerable, feel very vulnerable, I should say. But I'm learning and I'm getting there. And that's a good thing. But it is kind of interesting being this old and trying to learn, you know, that not everybody is gonna, you know, do what someone else did to you at some point. You gotta learn to digest. You gotta learn to sit with your trauma a little bit, digest it, and figure out how to not let it rule your life. And that's one of those things for me. It's like, I want to try new things. I want to genuinely be myself. And myself is a dorky, quirky, weird, kind of socially awkward, all the time awkward person. I like weird stuff. I like slightly spooky, weird, off, you know, the beaten path, different kind of stuff. But I also really like happy and flowers and cookies, and I'm a very odd mix. I think most people are. But I'm learning to be okay with that. And, well, let me put it this way. I've always been okay with it. I've not been public about it. So certain ways that I'm getting more comfortable with those kinds of things are through my art and like revealing that kind of stuff to you guys. And when it's well accepted, it's like, oh, so they don't think I'm totally nuts and crazy? Cool. Like, that makes me feel good. This personal situation that happened was, you know, a bit of a setback on that. It, you know, definitely was one of those like, oh shoot, I wish that wouldn't have happened, but now I know. And the thing that I learned from it was that, you know, that doesn't kill you, makes you stronger kind of situation. I really thought that losing that person I thought was my friend was going to kill me. It felt that way for a while. It felt like I was never going to get over it, or like I was never going to be okay. And then I realized, you know, it'll be okay. But on the flip side, I don't want to live in a world like that. A girl should be able to wear a prom dress that looks like a wedding dress, because you know what? Her wedding is never guaranteed. Do you know that statistically, as of 2003, I looked this up, 33% of the population will never get married. So it cracks me up when I see people saying things like, when did we start treating proms like weddings? And my response in my head, I don't say this, but I just want to be like, well, when did we start shitting all over kids who want to wear a pretty dress to an event? I don't say that because it's not nice and it's not adding anything positive to the thing. Instead, I just make a comment like, I really like that dress and I think it's great that they're going to an event and having a lot of fun. We should just let them. And then, that's the world I want to live in, where we're just complimenting each other and being nice and not stepping on each other's gowns. Like, I don't remember the saying, but isn't there some saying that's kind of like, be the, person who helps someone else straighten their crown? And some of you who are watching are probably privy to this little inside joke or information, and that includes if someone wants to wear a crown, how about we not make fun of them for it? How about if somebody wants to go out in public wearing a crown or a tiara, we just say, wow, that's a really pretty sparkly tiara and you look great in it, and I don't feel like wearing one, but it's great that you want to. Couldn't that just be the end of it? And it certainly could if people decided to be a little nicer. It takes forever to Frankenfuse stuff, but I really hate wasting. Sewing supplies are far too expensive to waste them. Also, this is the first time I've made a bag in canvas in like a really long time. I always use vinyl. I forgot what it's like having to interface everything. This sucks. I don't want to interface stuff. Taken forever. I have totally taken for granted all of these companies who are now running really cute vinyls, so I don't have to interface. And thank goodness my interior is going to be waterproof canvas, because I'm over interfacing at this point, like super over it. I keep thinking, oh, I'm done cutting my pieces now, great, and then I'm not, because I forget I have to like interface it and do all this stuff. Yeah, my last kind of sentiments on this whole situation, because I know there is there's a whole sect of people out there who are gonna say two things. Well, when I grew up, it was XYZ. Things were harder. I had to walk uphill both ways in the snow. We didn't do all of this. These generations are too soft. The other thing that same kind of sentiment is, well, you know what? People are going to say mean things, and life is hard. Get over it. And I agree to a certain extent. Life is hard, and people say mean things. They sure do, all the time. And like I said, this is not me like admonishing anybody else, being like, well, all I'm doing is trying to give you a touchstone for one, and two, a reminder for all of us, including me, that you don't have to be overly like toxic positive. You just have to not be a dick. Those are two very different things. Don't yuck somebody else's yum, because you're not helping them. You're not helping anybody. And, it's not adding anything to the conversation. It's not helpful. It's not thought-provoking. It's just mean. So, like, don't. And, but the last part that I'll add to that same sentiment is the life is hard. Get over it. And I do agree with that. Life is hard. Do we need to make it harder on anybody else? Do we need to make it worse? And no. The answer is no, we don't, especially when it comes to young people. I am so thankful. I see this sentiment a lot too, and I fully agree with it. I am so thankful that I grew up when I grew up, and I was not a second closer to any technology. We did have cell phones. They did have cameras on them. I was part of the era where like we still got charged per text message, and we did not have Facebook until I was well out of high school. And even then it was only for college kids. And I am so eternally grateful that that's the era that I grew up in, because I cannot imagine the struggle now, feeling like you can never get away from people, especially bullies. when all of this stuff was happening to me personally at the beginning of the year, I never thought I would utter this, but I told my husband, I don't feel safe in my own house. He said, what do you mean? And I said, I can't get away from any of this because it's intertwined in my business. It is intertwined in what were my friendships. Like, it's infiltrated my personal circle. It's everywhere all around me. And everyone that I know knows these people. And I feel like I have no reprieve from it. I'm here in my own house. I'm alone. And I don't, because of what this person did to me and how they've been talking about me and treating me, and in front of my face and behind my back, I don't feel safe anywhere. I just feel like it's infiltrated all points of my life and I can't get away from it. And as soon as I would start to feel better, there would be some other shenanigans, some other thing I'd find out about, some more stuff, some more screenshots getting sent to me, some more whatever about me. And it's like, there was no getting away from it. And I think that's what these kids in school deal with at this point. There is no reprieve from it. When I was a kid, something happened on a Thursday or Friday or whatever, and by the time everybody went home for the weekend, or if you were really lucky, a break, like a spring break or something else happened, and then your thing was old news. Your breakup was old news. That thing people were making fun of you for, it was old news. Something else happened, and that was it. But now, that is the case, but until something else happens, these kids just harp on each other via social media, via, phone, text message communications, whatever it is, and they just don't stop. They're like jackals. And I fully feel that now. I don't have children, but I had dealt with this as an adult, which I never thought was going to happen, never dreamed of. And here I am as a 35-year-old grown woman with a mortgage. Like, it was kind of unbelievable to me. And I can't believe that I even uttered that and told him that, but it was the truth. It was like, I don't feel safe. I don't feel okay. I feel like I can't sleep. I feel anxious all the time because this thing is just following me and I can't get away from it and I don't know what to do. And I mean, that was obviously very worrying to both of us, that I was just like, this is awful. I've got to figure out a way to get out of it. And, I did, and still am, frankly, but it's just crazy to me. So my answer to anybody who has that response of, well, life is hard, get over it. Sure. But do we have to make it any harder? And really the answer is no. Because again, when you say these things, when you act this way, when you yuck somebody else's yum, who are you doing it for? Because it's not for them. So when you're bullying somebody, when you're being crappy to somebody, whether it's a stranger or a friend or a family member or whatever, what are you adding to the conversation? How are you helping them? Is it productive? And what's your motive? And if the motive, really, when you search yourself, is just to make them feel bad, just to be mean because it makes you feel good, you really have to look at yourself there and go, okay, I have some work I need to do. And if that's your default, I would also challenge you to say, okay, how can I work around this? I have some work to do. Because you can rewire yourself. You just got to work on it. So, but you also have to do the work. And it's hard. It's uncomfortable. And I'll tell you, I'm not so perfect. Not pretending to be. Have work I have to do daily, every day, all the time. And for a long time, all the, things that I'm feeling and the way that I kind of am at this point in my life, I probably wouldn't have agreed with. I probably would have been the person to say, well, life is hard, get over it. Especially because I had kind of a hard life. But then I started learning some things about myself and other people and all kinds of other stuff. And then I thought to myself, just because I had some hard things doesn't mean I would want other people to experience those same hard things. Somebody said that to me, a friend or an acquaintance or something at one point. I remember the conversation and it was like, oh, that's a good point. So just because I went through it, I would want someone else to experience it? Of course not. And then that made me think, well, then why am I making other people experience it? Why am I being mean? Why am I forcing them to experience the hardship just because I had a mean mother or, uncaring father? people who said mean things and did mean things. Would I ever do that to my own kid? No. Would I ever want someone else to experience that? No. There's kind of an idea that there are two people in the world. I experienced it, therefore I will not ever make anyone else experience it. And then there's the flip side of, well, I experienced it, therefore you should have to too. So which one are you? If you experience something bad, sexual harassment at work, a bad friend, a bad relationship, abuse, whatever, would you say, well, I had to experience it, so you should too? It's a growing experience? Or would you say, I want to do my best to never ever be that thing for someone else, and I don't ever want anybody else to go through it? And I decided in that conversation several years back now, I'm the latter. I don't ever want to subject anybody or see them be subjected to the things that I had to deal with. Sure, they made me who I am, but I don't want to forcibly do that to somebody else. I don't ever want to do that to my kids if I'm lucky enough to have them, and I don't ever want to do that to other people. So if that's the case, here we are. I think I'm finally getting down to brass tacks on this stuff, you guys. I'm sick of interfacing. I have a little bit more interfacing to do, but you can see that I put this Pellon behind this fusible cotton because I needed to beef this up anyway. So I think I'm going to be okay with that. And I'm thinking I might quilt this, but then it's going to take 3,000 years. And I'm trying not to make it take 3,000 years. But it's pretty. Oh, I'm going to read through some of these comments just a little bit. And that says, you're better off with friends like that. I'd rather have less friends than be surrounded by mean people. 110%, which, to be honest with you, there's so many layers to all this kind of stuff, but I have always been a really close-knit kind of circle person, not because I don't like people. I actually really like people. I have a lot of trust issues. And I don't really, what it is I don't like to subject other people to that, but I tend to I think maybe overly ridicule a little bit and not trust people due to other stuff I've dealt with in my past. So this was the first time in my kind of adult life that I let a lot of people in, including this, kind of best friend. And then I made all these other friends, and we all happened to be in the sewing community. And I was really excited that I was wow, I put myself out there and look at my reward. I got all these friends who, I like them a lot and they like me and we have common interests. And then they turned out to not be who they were kind of pretending, and frankly are still pretending to be, to a lot of people's faces. And it's oh, well, that was not what I expected, but okay. And then it just kind of got worse and worse, and I didn't really know how to get out of it. It was again, because the business side was intertwined in it, and I was really freaked out that I was well, what if this person tries to do what? And then I thought, well, what are they going to do to me? What more are you going to do to me than you've already done? You've already been super crappy to me and mean to me. You've already made me feel bad. You're making me feel bad daily being around you, with how you treat others. What more could you possibly do? And I just thought, you know what? That's a really good point. What more are you going to do to me? Come at me, bro. And I was finally able to get out of it. But the watershed moment for me, unfortunately, was having that other friend, kind of go over to the dark side, as it were, whatever that was, So I don't know that I would have made the decision on my own to go, you know what, I don't need this anymore and I don't really want to be here. I was already feeling that way privately, but I guess I just kept thinking, oh, but it might get better. And, but we're friends, and these people were nice at one point, so I'm sure they'll be nice again later. I had all the excuses in the world, and I just kept thinking things were going to change or be different, or, I was just trying to see the best in it. I was trying to, maybe they're being really mean to that girl and picking on her all the time because she really is what they say, not she deserves it, but just kind of well, I wasn't there. I don't know the whole story. This is just one side. I always had an excuse or something in my mind that was making me be okay with it or just not say much. Publicly, I didn't say anything because I was really creeped out by the business person that was involved in this whole thing. And I had money tied up with them at the time, and there was just a lot going on. And I was really scared that person was gonna, I don't know, try to, again, I'm not even really sure. When I look back on it now, it's well, what more are you gonna do to me? but it made me, freaked out. So I was constantly like, oh no, like I have to mind my P's and Q's and be quiet and not ruffle any feathers. And the funnier thing about all of that, if y'all want to learn, anything from me, none of those people cared about ruffling my feathers. They didn't give any consideration to my feelings or my thoughts or anything about me. It was like that did not matter. So isn't that the whole irony of it all? I'm trying to be nice and not make waves, and I don't want to make other people feel bad. It's like, well, what exactly did that get me? Like, nowhere. How silly. So, you live and you learn. But at the same time, that is not, at least in the way that I learned all of that, I would not wish that on anybody. So I can tell you all right now, the one thing I do not like about this interfacing already is there's like a bubble. And I bet you when I turn this bag, the bubble, you can't see it, but there's like, do you see? I don't know how I can show that to you because it's not attached right here, and I don't like that. So I think I probably will quilt it. I don't know. I really detest most interfacing, which is why I do the fusible cotton and the fusible fleece on every single bag ever, because I hate bubbling and wrinkling interfacing. It drives me nuts. And I feel like no matter what I use or how I do it, I always end up with weird stuff. But yes, I would tell anybody else the same thing that you're telling me, Annette, is that I am so much better off, and I am 100%, 110% so much better off with those people. And now that I've been out of that situation for a few months and I feel a lot better, I feel so much. It's crazy that it felt as consuming as it did. It really shouldn't have, but it did. That's all I can really say. I can't really excuse it any other way. At the time, it just felt like this huge cloud of doom over me. I've never, I don't know if that was like anxiety. I mean, I'm sure that it was. I was very anxious, but I don't typically suffer from anxiety. I know that there was a lot of depression involved in it. At the same time, right after that was when my dog died. It all happened within about 3 to 5 days of each other. The month prior to that had been really hard. An interesting thing that I have come to know as well, which I already learned this lesson about these people, but for those of you out there who may be struggling with the same thing or trying to learn about yourself or other people, pay attention to 2 things. Pay attention to the people who gave you a hard time when they knew you were already having a hard time. Think about that. When you were already going through something and somebody sought, I don't care who that person was, blood relative, friend, boss, whoever, they knew you were going through a hard time and they piled on top of it. Really examine that person. Examine their motives. Examine your interactions with them. Examine everything about that relationship. And be very, very careful, if not completely avoidant of that person. Somebody who chooses to give you a hard time when you are already going through a hard time, most humans come equipped with empathy. We can put ourselves in other people's shoes, even if it's not something we've directly experienced, and we can say, wow, that feels really crappy. I feel bad for that person. I don't want to go through that. I feel bad that they're going through it. And if we can do that, which most of us can from a very young age, then we easily would not feel okay about piling on to somebody else's bad time, whatever the bad time is. Somebody who feels okay about doing that, I would venture to say, on the very least, is just not a very nice person, but on the more extreme side of the spectrum, probably has some issues bordering on like sociopathic. And I mean that sincerely. A sociopath is a person who, there's differences between a sociopath and a psychopath, and a sociopath is a person who, doesn't have a lot of those skills. Where they are able to have empathy for other people, and not only that, they delight in pain of other people. That kind of borders more on psychopathic. But a sociopath is the least, out of the two. They're kind of the more benign one a lot of times. So understand that if somebody delights in giving you a hard time when you're already having a hard time, there's something wrong there. There's a few reasons why it could be happening, but there's something wrong. So the second thing to note, or like to think about, first one being, if somebody is delighting in giving you a hard time when you're already having a hard time, I literally just lost my train of thought going over there checking on that interfacing. It'll come to me. But that one specifically, when I kind of thought about that one and I sort of learned about that one, I went, oh, okay, well, I need to examine. In my case, my best friend decided to do this like not even 10 days after I had just come back from a funeral where I had been speaking to that person because we spoke every day. And she knew that that funeral was really hard, that it was really disturbing. It was really sad. It was really upsetting. There had been some other upsetting things that had happened while on that trip out to the funeral. And she didn't have a problem at all, just absolutely, unleashing all of this stuff on me at that time. It's fine if you decide you don't want to be friends with somebody or whatever, but do you really need to do all of that to them at a time? I mean, there's also a way to tell somebody, look, I don't want to be friends anymore, versus like unleashing a whole bunch of monstrous hate, made up, nasty stuff onto that person too, which is never okay. Especially if that person never treated you badly. You're not, this, it wasn't even a list of grievances. It was like, just here, I'm in a bad mood or whatever, so I'm just going to be crappy to you. Like, it was, honestly, I mean, it was just horrifying, the whole thing. And then coming from a friend, makes it worse. I've never had enemies say things that bad to me in my life. I really wish I could remember that other thing. Because it was a good one. I remember when I read it and I kind of learned about that and I thought, oh, that's really interesting. And it'll come to me because both of those things are something that I try to keep in the, foreground of my mind. Like, okay, these are things that need to be studied and thought about. But yes, anybody, I would absolutely say, with friends like that, who needs enemies? Another kind of ism related to all of that, and I think we all probably learned this when we were in school, but if you didn't, I did. And I forgot it, apparently, and had to relearn it as an adult. If they're talking about somebody else today, they'll be talking about you tomorrow. Period. If they're targeting one individual today, tomorrow, or whenever, your number's going to come up. You're not immune. And don't think that you are. People like that, it's just what they do. And the other side to all of it is, those people don't genuinely like themselves, and they don't like each other. So it's like, it's crazy to be involved in all of that and see it all from an adult perspective. And then I was really thinking about kids and thinking, this is crazy. Like, this is so juvenile and so sixth grade, but this is what sixth grade kids are like dealing with these days. There's a big reason why the self-harm rates and suicide rates at this point start at like 8 to 10 years old, which is insane. That's crazy to me. I can't believe that. I remember when I was 8, I was still waking up on Saturday morning watching Winnie the Pooh cartoons, eating cereal. Like, I can't imagine some of the things that these kids have to deal with. And then the fact that because they're so ingrained on technology stuff and social media, they can't get away from, their issues. The weekend is no longer the weekend because it just followed them home in their pocket. It's really kind of sad and interesting. And on this sort of topic of the, say it while you sow situation, this is a space where we can all sit and talk, vent, learn about each other, learn about others. Which, by the way, I mean, I know you guys are sewing, but I do like when you comment and we can discuss and talk about these things. And I think it's helpful to other people who are tuning in, by the way, that they're not just hearing it from me. It's like, now they're hearing it from you, and, everybody's kind of talking on here. Oh, sorry, I'm tapping the microphone. I mean to wake you up there. Mental health in schools, with these kids, it's been obviously not great, judging by the way that our society and stuff looks at this point too, and all the things that we're doing as adults that aren't great and passing on to these kids or not passing on to them. It's really interesting. A lot of the schools have started mental wellness programs as young as kindergarten, which in a way is really sad, But at the same time, I think to myself, you know what? They're teaching them really healthy coping skills, which I think is really interesting. And they're teaching them lots of stuff about like feelings, emotions, psychology, you know, your reactionary, your reactions, I should say, are reactionary responses to things in your environment, other people, yourself, your parents, whatever. And going through like coping mechanism techniques with them, breathing exercises, even things like yoga, breathing to regulate emotions, paying attention to, okay, something made you angry. What do you feel? Why do you feel it? How are you going to control it? What do you do with it? So that's really interesting to me because I'm like, you know what? If we had done that a long time ago with other people, maybe we wouldn't be where we are right now as a society, where we're seeing all this meanness and people feel the need to crap on a girl for her prom dress or whatever, you know, talk crap about somebody's gender reveal baby party, whatever the thing is. So it's really interesting to me because I'm like, okay, I will be so interested to see in about 10 years where, you know, we're at when these kids who are currently, you know, between the ages of 5 and 8 really start matriculating into upper grades and adulthood, and see if that changes anything. It's really interesting to me how many instances of like road rage have gone up. Mass violent events have obviously gone up a ton. It says something about the state of all of us in general. How we're treating each other, I really think has a major component in that, but also how we treat ourselves. How we're treating other people. You're probably not treating yourself very well if you're not also treating other people very well. Mentally, if you're not saying nice things to yourself, if you're not in a place where you can love yourself, you're probably not loving on a lot of other people. And you're probably not putting a lot of good out if you're not having some good from within. And that all originates, you know, here at home. I have a plaque over my fireplace that I bought years ago, and it says the most important work you will ever do starts within the walls of your own home. And I 100% believe that. I bought it at a time when I was doing a ton of DIY construction, and it's kind of written on 2x4, but it has so many multiple layers of meaning. It's very important to me because I really think that if you think about that word home as in your own, right here, you, then it really takes on a totally different meaning. I think it's really important always to be doing work on yourself, no matter what that is, whether it's emotional, psychological. One of the things I've been trying to do, 2 things actually recently, cooking more. I used to love to cook. And when I got absorbed into sewing many years ago, like, I'm not going to lie, I just kind of decided like, oh, I don't have to cook and I don't have kids. So my husband is like, you know, he doesn't care so much. I mean, he does. He loves when I cook. But I'm like, oh, let's just order pizza. And he's not going to be like, well, why aren't you cooking? You know, he's not going to force me. So I got kind of lazy and like complacent and sort of like, well, you know, I don't have to. I just won't, you know. And a lot of my excuse a lot of the time was, well, I'm busy. I don't have kids. I'm not like having a family meal around the table. But it's a terrible excuse. Really, the thing is, I need to make good food so I can have good food. Period. You know, if I'm eating junk, of course I'm going to feel terrible. And of course I'm going to gain weight. And of course I'm going to spend more money on food. And for what reason? Because it's junk food. So I just thought to myself, you know what? I've got to start treating myself better when it comes to my food intake and like what I'm doing. But also I have got to start, you know, nourishing myself, not just with food. Once upon a time, I used to read a ton of books. I was really into books. That was my thing. I just loved reading. It was an escape for me growing up, especially. And then I just got too busy. And then I got to a point, I'm not going to lie, where every time I sat down with a book, I'd fall asleep. Like for years, it just put me right out. I could not read to save my life. Every time I did, I literally fell asleep. And I was like, well, that's not going to work. So I just kind of stopped reading. And I've recently decided, you know what? I don't care what I read, but I have to read something. Because it's just not good for your mind. Oh, no, I did do that right. to not read. I mean, it's fine if you don't enjoy it, but you've got to do something to help yourself. You've got to take care of yourself and, nourish your brain, your body, your brain, and however that is that you do it. If it's like you just want to be outside in nature, then do that. Go hiking. And if I kind of get back to our core thing here about not yucking someone else's yum, if you're feeling these negative feelings, these bad feelings, these hateful feelings all the time, or really any of the time, do something to make yourself feel better. Look at why you feel bad in the first place, and then do something to make yourself feel better. So if that's take a walk, a hike, go out with your dog, read a book, whatever, cook something to just enrich your life that day. And I bet you if you start doing that, you'll start feeling a lot better. A lot of this for me started as like self-care with this whole situation where I said, you know what, this all really sucked and it feels bad, but like I have got to start taking better care of myself because, truth be told, just to be completely blunt about it, it was like, well, you can't depend on other people, not for anything apparently, not even to be nice. You're obviously not going to have very many friends, so that's fine. Keep your circle close and do something better with your time, be more productive. So I started reading more books and I started cooking. It's not like I didn't do those things before, but I'm getting back into it and it's helped me a lot. It's helped me feel better, helped me get to a better place too, but it's also led to more, paths of growth and self-discovery and happiness and, lots of good things. So, I can't really say enough good things about all of this. I'm kind of, again, I'm sad that it was born out of all of that, but I'm not sure that before all of this happened, I thought I was happy. I was like excited to have all these friends. I felt really good about all of it. I felt, complete as it were. Like I didn't think that I had anything lacking and I was fine to just eat pizza or, not be physically active anymore. And, I was using my time spending it with my friends before they all that whole group sort of went a little psycho. And then I was just like, well, that's not going to work. So, yeah, I'm not really mad about it, but I do wish I didn't have to experience it in that way to learn it. And it's not an experience I recommend. And so, yeah, if any of that has taught me anything, which I already knew the lesson about not yucking someone else's yum, but it definitely doubled down, solidified everything for me, that it was cool. So words and actions have a lot of power, inwardly and outwardly. What you do to other people does matter, and how you treat them does matter, and how you treat yourself matters too. So, yeah. Just interesting the things that we experience in life. So I'm also a firm believer in, the things, when things are meant to find you, they will find you, whether that's people or content online, a book that comes across your desk that you decide you want to read, whatever it is. And so in that same vein, after the last Say It While You Sew session, which was themed about unacceptable advice, I had a lot of you guys reach out to me, which I'm not going to lie, I wasn't really expecting. And I had a lot of you tell me, various things, your experiences, which I don't mind, by the way. Please always reach out if you want to reach out. But I thought it was really interesting how many of you were like, this whole thing really spoke to me, and I'm so happy to hear you say these things, and here's my story, and here's some details about me, and here's what I experienced, and here's my kind of take or opinion on it, or I so agreed with XYZ thing you were saying. And that kind of made me think, okay, well then I think we should keep doing these, because I think it's important to talk about these things. I think, once again, the point that we're at in society where we think it's acceptable to do this stuff, well then probably somebody needs to come on here and be like the after school special saying, hey, it's not okay to make people feel like crap. And here's why. And it sounds crazy that we should even have to say it, but I guess I don't think we get enough of that or something, because here we are, having to say things like, wow, at a grown adult age, maybe we shouldn't be super mean to each other. Maybe we should have left that on the playground when we were 8. So, I guess that's fine. I'm cool to be that voice for whoever needs to hear it. And I'm also perfectly happy, not that I think I'm in such a great place to be this, but I'm perfectly happy to be a touchstone for anybody who is like, I really needed to hear that, which I got a lot of, by the way, after the last one. So many of y'all saying, I needed to hear that. And I'm so glad you said it. And many people that are not, kind of normally a part of this circle joined the circle because they found it through YouTube or whatever. And they're like, I just happened to log on and there you were. And I have no idea who you are, but I'm so glad I tuned in because you said XYZ thing. And you have no idea how much I needed to hear that. And so that made me feel good. It was interesting too, in a way, because it piqued my interest. I have a whole list of these going that, if I have personal experience or I research the things, look for little facts and things about it. And, it's interesting to me. But I do think it's important. I think it's important that we talk about mental health stuff. I think that it's really important that we start to care more about these things and care more about the people around us. I think it's really important that we start to care about ourselves and not care more about ourselves than other people, because that's where you also get into a slippery slope as well. I just think we need to start placing value on the right things within ourselves, within other people. And I think that talking about these things helps kind of drive that home and solidify it. I think as kids, we get a lot of that. Some kids, maybe not other kids. Depends on your background, I guess, and your situation. And then I think as we get to be adults, we get kind of cast out there and we sort of forget. We forget about things that we learned. We forget about what some of this stuff feels like. We forget things that we definitely learned as kids. And then we're like, well, but wait, I'm an adult, I'm 30, 40, 50 years old. I should have known this. Or in my case, one of the things I kept thinking was, I learned this lesson about these friends and this type of stuff when I was in elementary school. I did. And how did I forget? Right? By the way, lime green waterproof canvas. Delicious. Look how good it goes. I'm so excited for this bag. Yeah, I'm not sure how I forgot, but I did. I know that I already learned this lesson for sure. And I should have known better, but I didn't. I did, and I guess I didn't listen to myself. I kept ignoring all the red and pink flags, and I just kept going on like, this will be fine. Everything's fine. I was totally the epitome of that little dog sitting in the middle of like the fire in the house, because I knew that it wasn't fine and I could sense that it wasn't fine, and I kept just making excuses and just, oh, it'll be okay. No big deal. And yeah, obviously it wasn't. So fine and great. But, now I need to pick up the pieces, and I am, and I have. But that's not a lesson that I care to repeat ever again. And maybe I'm being too hard on myself, but I do blame myself a lot, and I struggle a lot with trust, as I mentioned. And so now it's kind of at this point where it's like, cool, so I'm sort of back to like trusting nobody, which kind of sucks, but in a way I think it's just a good coping mechanism for me at this stage. But I do know somebody in my life who's aware of all this stuff, and she keeps saying things to me like, you have to learn to trust people. Okay, well, I get it, but I kind of did that, and like, look what happened. So while I know that's not necessarily like fair, it's kind of fair, because like, look what happened. And so I'm over here just like, I'm just gonna keep myself to myself and make muffins and read books, play with my dog and my cat and my husband. We'll just hang out because he's nice and I like him. So yeah. Anyway, I'm like almost to the point where I'm ready to sew this thing. This took me way longer. Can I tell you guys, it's been a long time since I've cut a bag that I needed to interface all these parts. And this bag doesn't even have that many parts. I literally cut and sewed one of these out the other night in the time that like almost all of this has taken me. And I realize I'm kind of slow turtle. I am. I'm not fast. I don't like to be because I make mistakes. And I will add this to it. This is 1,000 times harder than when I'm just like by myself in my sewing room, because I'm trying to cut and do stuff, but then I'm also trying to focus on you guys and do this whole, you know, thing. So it's fine. It's fun. It's interesting, but it takes more time and more energy. And it's just kind of one of those funny things. It's like, oh my gosh, I feel like this interfacing and cutting has taken forever. Like, I don't know if any of y'all started cutting at the same time I did, and interfacing if you were, but like, is anybody else leaps and bounds ahead of me? Like, I feel super slow. The one I cut the other night, that blue and white one, it's all vinyl. The only thing that added extra time, like I made piping. I literally had to cut the pieces, get the materials, do all the stuff to make piping. So that added extra time. And now I'm like, man, this is just the exterior bag. And then, you know what makes me really sad? I have a whole wall over there. Before all these cute fancy companies started offering vinyl, they were all offering cotton and canvas. I have a whole freaking wall of cotton and canvas. And now I'm like, can I just get them all in vinyl? I don't want to interface these. Ugh, boo-hoo. Oh, I have to get over it. Okay, so I needed, hold on. I gotta count out my pieces because you know I'm gonna get to the sewing machine. I'm not gonna have what I need. So these gussets, zipper gusset, trapezoid doodad, outside, outside, inside, inside, and slip pocket, and the little D-ring thing, which is also gonna double as my back strap. I think we got it. So I really hate to do this. I'm totally fine to like do the live video and sew and whatever. It's 5:15, so it's probably dinner time. But I'm thinking I'm gonna sew this anyway, and I don't like to like conflagrate the whole say it while you sew / other stuff. So I'm gonna read through these comments really quick, and then I think I'm gonna hop off, and we'll save this one for whoever wants to tune into this one live later, and then I will just like hop back on later for like a live sewing thing. We'll sew a Mav pack, we'll have fun. I'm doing it on the straight stitch machine. And so that'll be like a much more lighthearted, chit-chatty kind of little, you know, bunch of shenanigans. But that way this doesn't end up being like a forever video if somebody wanted to tune into the say it while you sew content. So anyway, let me kind of quickly read through here. Let's see, Angela, she says, I hate interfacing. I agree. How are your teeth? I missed a few lives. I haven't really been on too many of them. I just started doing content again. So, teeth are good. Things are improving. I can eat like regular food. I ate food. I've been eating food that I can like bite into. Things are good. Hopefully I don't have any of my teeth, but like, they're good. And I did get the okay from the dentist. I went and saw him on the way out in June to Socation. I was vending there and teaching. So I came back through, and he actually gave me the okay that he said he does not want me to come back in fall, which is really exciting because I was dreading and planning for that. So he says until further notice, like could be years, he wants to just leave these alone, these crowns, and we're good. So we're just going to kind of like monitor the situation, see if my body starts to wig out again. And if it does, then we'll address it. But if not, we'd kind of rather like leave well enough alone. And I fully agree with that sentiment because like I've had enough bad dental work in past. I really don't want to like pull these off and go through all that again. So if I don't need to, I don't need to. And then the only thing that I'm doing is straightening my bottom teeth using like a retainer system thing where I like swap them out. So I'm currently doing that, and I just sleep in them. Nobody tell the lady I'm supposed to wear them all day, but like I don't because I'm snacky and you got to take them out to eat, and I just wear them in bed at night to sleep, and it works great. So I've gone through 3 of the retainers, and I'm on the 3rd one now, and after this last one I think I'm done. So, yay. Yeah, dental trauma on top of all of the rest of this trauma, right? But yeah, it's been good. So yeah, we are good with that. Let's see. Hello there to you as well. Kalisha said, I agree with Annette. Yeah, look, you guys are totally right. And there was also a situation many months ago now when I was kind of talking about some of this stuff, and it helps me to verbally process some of this stuff too. This isn't just like again, just for you guys. This is for all of us. It was Elizabeth who was on there in the comments, and a couple of other people too, but specifically I, know and have met Elizabeth. And she told me when I was talking about this, I was like, well, I'll shoulder the whole responsibility of this whole thing. And I really miss my friend. I miss this person, and I should just shoulder the whole thing, and I should just go back and apologize and people please my whole way through the situation. And if I just own it, I don't even care if she apologizes or is different or anything else, because at the time I was just really overwhelmed and I was really sad. And my brain was on this one track thing of, well, I can probably just fix it. I can hold all the pieces together and be the glue that needs to be there, and I'll just fix it. And then I'll have to overlook all of the terrible things that she said that were totally uncalled for and how awful she was, but I can do that. That's basically the gist of what I was saying. Not that directly, but it was that. And she and other people were like, oh, honey, don't do it. Don't go back. Don't let people do this. They did it for a reason. They made these choices. They're going to have to sit with those, and so are you, unfortunately, but don't do it. And I just needed somebody to talk some sense into me in that moment, and they did, and that was great. And it was like, as soon as I thought about it, it was like, what am I doing? Of course I can't go back to that. You're not better off with people like that in your life. You can't surround yourself with people like that. And, don't. And if you're feeling that way, that's me saying it to you now. Don't go back. Don't accept it. Another really good saying that I really like is talk no bull, but take no shit. Don't take it. I don't care who it is. I don't care if they're your blood. I don't care if they're your friend. I don't care if they're your only friend in the world. It sucks to be lonely, but you know what? Don't be around people you can't trust, and don't bring them back into your life, because that's just, you're asking for trouble. So yeah, I agree with you guys too. So Beginning says, I'm baffled by your amazing audio quality. See, whoever was on this thing at the beginning, the audio quality matters. I'm wearing a microphone. At the very beginning of this video, I always wear a microphone for the most part, because I like good audio quality. I think it's important, and I walk around a lot to the press and stuff, so it's important. And I couldn't get my mic to work. I messed it up, and some people are like, oh, you don't need the mic, we can hear you. But good audio quality makes a difference, and it's important. So yes, I always try to have good lighting, good audio quality. This is a live, so it's not as good as my production stuff. But I try to make it good content all around. So that's super funny that you say that. Yeah, at the beginning I was like, I have to get this microphone to work. That's hilarious. So Angela says, I have 2 children, boy and a girl, 27, 25, and a spiteful mother who only loves boys. I have 2 brothers, and I stopped talking to her a few months ago. She causes trouble between myself, my brother, and my 2 kids. So you're talking about your mother, I think, Angela, if I'm guessing that right. Can relate. Haven't spoken to my mom since I was about 21 years old. I think I did tell that story. I don't know if I did about the cruise. So story for another time, but can relate. Not the liking boys part, but classic narcissistic parents, narcissistic mom. One of the siblings was the scapegoat. One of them was the golden child, and the other one was the problem child. And, just a whole very bad family dynamic. And I had to make that decision years ago to say, I can't do this anymore. It's not healthy. So I can relate, and I know it's hard. I know it's tough, and I know 100% you're going to hear a lot of those shaming phrases of but she's your mom. Doesn't matter. DNA does not give anybody a pass to treat you like crap, ever. You deserve better. And it's really unfortunate that it is your own mom who's doing that, your own family. But listen to me when I tell you, it was the right decision, and you made it for a reason. And I want you, even if other people cannot, I want you to respect the you that made that choice. That day, that time, that hour, whatever the straw was that broke it, You are a different person at this point, this minute, than you were at that time you made that decision, but I need you, the now you, to respect the you who made that decision, to say, this is enough. I can't do it, and I won't do it, and I won't do it to my kids, or whatever the choices were that you made to get you there, that like made you get there. Hold on to that and don't let it go, and do not let people tell you, oh, well, don't let them shame you, don't let them guilt you, she's your mom, you're going to regret it someday. No. What you will regret is not standing up for yourself, not showing up for yourself, and you will absolutely regret going back on the decision that you made, because you made it for a reason. So you will regret doing it out of guilt from some other stranger telling you, oh, you have to go back. If you want to make that decision, you do that, but you do it. And as someone who personally dealt with that for literally decades, I can tell you it was still the best decision that I made, and it was healthy for me. And I am, not maybe this current moment given things that have been going on, but largely in my life, I am so much happier and was able to grow as a person and overcome a lot of things, and am thriving in spite of all of that. And, because moving away from it. So I can understand that decision for sure. She says, I feel bad not talking to her, but she's always been nasty except to her sons, which, I get it. You're going to spend a lifetime probably trying to justify and think about those things depending on how your wiring is. I know I do that. But you just have to move on and grapple with it on your own. Don't try to do that while you're still in the situation. And that goes out to anybody out there who's trying to deal with a person in your life, friend, family, spouse, whatever it is, boss, that is a nasty, toxic person who is not healthy for you. Don't try to grapple and figure it out while you're in the situation. Get out of the situation first. And I would tell you, don't try to figure it out. But in the case of this stuff with these, people that I knew and all these other things, I'll probably spend many more years dealing with this, because that's my wiring. I have to riddle everything out of it before I can let it go. That's a coping mechanism, by the way, if you didn't know. So you can look into the psychology on that, maybe figure out why you're doing it. I know why I'm doing it, and I'm trying to work on it, and I'm getting better, but it's a thing. So anyway, somebody said, I hate to go, but I'll rewatch. Yep, it'll be published. It always is. I'm going to go quickly eat some dinner, and what do we say? Obviously, anybody who's free to do it can. I think I will sew this one. I'll live stream that too, and we'll just have some fun sewing another Mav pack and doing some hacks and stuff, and looking at cute fabric and having little less verbal mental therapy and a little more sewing creativity therapy. So anyway, let's do that. I'm gonna charge the phone. I'm gonna charge my amazing quality audio mic. I'm just kidding. The regular mic, and then get myself all set up over there with the fresh bobbin and all that stuff, and I'll meet you guys back here in, let's say, it's 5:30 my time CDT, so let's do 45 minutes, an hour, something like that. Maybe let's call it 6:30. How about that? So I'll see you then. Thank you for tuning in, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.